Hello, healthy people, and welcome back to another episode of the Alter Your Health podcast, your source of information and inspiration to promote the holistic transformation of your health and the health of our planet. I'm your host, Dr. Benjamin Alter. I'm a licensed naturopathic doctor in Colorado, and I consult with people all over the world using the internet, along with my partner and wife, Dr. Susanna Alter, who's the co-host of this podcast. You'll see her and hear her, of course, on the odd episodes. That is, the odd numbered episodes. They're not always that odd when Dr. Susanna's on. But I just wanted to remind you who I was, the host of this podcast. And of course, I want to dive into this episode, which is a great one. And it really speaks to the intention of this podcast, which is not only to shove information down your throats, because I always think that we are really bombarded with information, and there is no shortage of information in the world. It's all at our fingertips in any given moment. But inspiration, that's another story. And that's where our guest comes in. He is an inspiration, and this conversation is inspirational. At least it has been for me. So our guest today is Edward Troy, and I met Edward at an event here in Carbondale, my new hometown. I moved here just about 3 or so months ago, and just a couple weeks ago we Alter Health had the opportunity to sponsor an event where Dr. Joel Fuhrman was speaking. And for those of you who don't know Dr. Fuhrman, he is Mr. Nutritarian Man. And you can go back and meet Dr. Fuhrman in Alter Your Health podcast number 50, episode number 50, where I was visiting with Dr. Fuhrman. And anyway, Dr. Fuhrman was in town here in Carbondale, giving a really fantastic talk. And Edward kind of stood up and asked a question really to the effect of, how can I help spread this message, not only in the health industry, but in the fitness industry, which is where Edward really lives as a personal trainer, and he has really lived there throughout the extent of his life, as we talk about in this conversation. And I when Edward stood up, he had this presence, he was strong, and then he said that he was 61 years young, and I was like, wow, that guy really knows what he's doing. He's taking care of himself, or so at least it seems, based on the outside appearance. He's, and then of course, understanding how he fuels himself, I think he is taking care of himself pretty darn well. So we talk about what it means to really take care of yourself pretty darn well in this conversation. We talk about being on a plant-based diet, a vegan diet, and how that is by no means a hindrance to athletic performance. And we talk about Edward's journey to getting there, because it's not a linear path for him or for anyone. It's all over the place, and we're all on our own journeys. And, what it comes down to for him, I learned, was a matter of morals and ethics that really kind of pushed him over the edge, so to speak, to commit to this sort of lifestyle, a plant-based vegan lifestyle. So obviously you don't need to be a vegan to listen to this. You don't need to have any intention to be a vegan to listen to this. But this conversation is a great one, and it kind of, once again speaks to the inspirational aspect that is important in any sort of health transformation. And it also speaks to the, just the infinite possibilities, the potential for change, because Edward never intended to go full-on vegan and thrive in his athletic performance. But, we can all be open to great things in our life, and just having an open mind, having an open heart really does serve us in our journeys. So Edward is a vegan personal trainer here in the Aspen, Colorado area. I'm not in Aspen, by the way. I'm about 30 or 40 miles down the river from Aspen. But Edward qualified for the 2019 United States Track and Field Masters Championships in 6 speed and power events. Very impressive at the age of 61. And he is committed to helping people be in life. We are, after all, human beings, so that's great. Thank you for helping us be, Edward. And in being, we are able to achieve our goals. So fitness and health are fun while being beneficial to a healthy and prosperous life. I couldn't agree more. And at 61 years young, Edward enjoys teaching his clients how to stay young and fit just like him, and his clients are success stories. So I'll stop blabbering and we can dive into this one with Edward Troy. And before we do, just a reminder to subscribe, rate, review this podcast, leave a little comment or feedback. I really do honestly appreciate it. I read it and take it to heart. So thank you for those comments and feedback. And now, here we go with our guest, Edward Troy.
Okay. Now, do you record this?
So yeah, we're recording.
Okay.
We're recording now.
Fantastic.
We're going.
Hi, people.
Yeah, welcome to the Alter Your Health podcast, Edward. I'm really happy to have you here in person, here in Carbondale.
Well, thank you for having me here. I'm absolutely delighted and excited to go over a bunch of stuff for vegans and athletes alike.
Yes, because that's what you are. And you're a master vegan athlete. And we're going to focus on that. I just wanted to share with the audience that I met Edward a couple weeks ago at the Dr. Fuhrman event. And you got up in your strong body and you shared your message, your vision. And it was really inspiring to see you standing up. And I think I told you when you said, I'm 61 years old, and that's when I was like, what? This guy's 61? He must
One day at a time.
One day at a time. But who's counting? Yeah. So yeah, we talked after that event, and I thought, wow, this guy probably sounds like it has a really cool story to share, and I'd love to know it more. And I think a lot of people would probably benefit from hearing, your journey in health and fitness and nutrition and all these things. So would you like to just start by sharing a little bit, maybe the abbreviated version of how you got into the world of vegan athletics?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been pretty long journey. I would say the first thing that got me thinking in terms of, biological and environmental health, if you will, was when I read Silent Spring in 1968, Rachel Carson book. I was 10 years old at the time, and I was horrified that people were using chemicals, better living through chemistry, on all kinds of foods and pastures and forests and so forth, and that things like birds. Rachel Carson wrote how birds were just mysteriously dying.
So you were 10 years old when you were introduced to this? Was there at the age of 10? What else were you into besides reading these kind of books? I mean, were you running around and getting dirty with the kids in the neighborhood and stuff?
Yep. I ran around. I got dirty. I always felt like I was one of the top, athletic people as a kid growing up. I was always doing foot races. Unfortunately, I was in an inner city where I had to also do a lot of fighting.
What city was that?
Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay.
Detroit without all the press, and certainly without the Detroit Free Press for people who actually still read a newspaper.
Yeah.
And so, I just was always interested in all kinds of science. I was like amazed at things. So, it was just like, wow, look at these powerful volcanic explosions. These, how powerful could a hurricane be? And how strong is a hydrogen bomb, and what chemicals do these things and those things, and you start reading about things in like the periodic table of elements. I was very much interested in right away, and so I started studying that. Had a very strong interest in chemistry, and my father used to have his old college textbooks around, including one written by a guy named Linus Pauling, called College Chemistry. Yeah, a long time ago, they had this thing of the vitamin C thing until I could cure colds, which of course turned out to be incorrect. And so I was fascinated by some of the carbon chain chemistry, where you have different kinds of attachment points, if you will, in a long chain, and the carbon forms chains and sheets and rings.
And is this in relation to human biochemistry and physiology, or just in general in the greater scheme of things?
The ether of science.
You're kind of a science nerd.
Yeah, I was science nerd, geek, and someone that used to have their books kicked out of their hand by some hoodlums that that lived near our neighborhood. And so I was constantly fighting those hoodlums, and I would almost never lose. And I did, but I didn't want to be bothered with them. I would prefer to read about astrophysics. I'd rather read about symmetry in physics, or I'd rather read about evolutionary biology and things of that sort. That really did interest me a great deal as a kid. And I was found incredible fascination with the interaction between what humans are doing with industry, invention, technology, and how that's affected our biology, or if it was affecting our biology.
So did this propel you into your academic studies? Where did you go to school and kind of dive into this further, or was it kind of just in your free time diving into these books?
I think it was a mixture of all the above.
Yeah.
And so I went into the physical sciences. So I was just very much interested in that sort of stuff, just my entire life. And
meanwhile, you had this real athletic drive kind of throughout. Yeah. So you were kind of balancing the brainiac.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, I'm still looking for my brain.
Well,
let me know if you find it. Roll it back to me.
But so you would say that the athletics kind of dominated throughout most of your life from a young age, but you were still I
would say that the academics interest probably superseded the athletic stuff.
All right, cool.
Yeah, I mean, I used to be a tournament chess player. So I was into all kinds of stuff like use your brain, use your brain, use your brain. Use your brain to use your body. How can you use your brain to use your body to make your body function better, faster, swifter, stronger, whatever. Mm-hmm. And so I just went down that path as hard as I could. And I did end up dropping out of college. Later on took a Series 763 test to be a stockbroker and learned how to do that kind of stuff. So I've always had these multiple interests that seem to be not really easily connected. Mm-hmm. I couldn't connect those dots very well.
You connected them, but someone else maybe
I guess so.
Picked them up and put them together. So you were a stockbroker for a while?
Yeah, that was in the 1980s. Perfect timing. I got in right when Black Monday happened. Actually, the Friday before Black Monday, that was not a good thing. Uh-huh. The market had dropped 95, 57, and then 108, and then 508 points.
So that was right when you got into the stock market?
Yes.
So that was
exquisite
a rude awakening.
Very rude.
And so how long did you stay in that field of work?
I did that for a year.
Okay,
and I kind of wish I had stayed on, I wish I had stayed longer for professional reasons. But, things were very different back then. And if someone read The Pursuit or saw the movie The Pursuit of Happiness, I was that kind of like that guy dialing that phone.
Working your ass off.
Oh, my God. Yeah, I worked 7 days a week.
Yeah.
Monday through Thursday, I would dial the phone an average of probably 950 times a day. I would talk to in those days, you would get about 10% of the people that you called. Mm-hmm. So I would speak to about 95 people a day. Sometimes a little less, a little bit more, but probably around 95 people a day. And then on Friday, so I work from 7 a.m. until 11 p.m. And so I would do that 4 days a week. Yeah. And then on Fridays, I would get out early at 6 o'clock. So it would be 7 o'clock in the morning. I'd get out early at 6 p.m.
Only 11-hour day.
I know. I felt like it was a holiday, man.
Yeah. So it sounds like you've the strong work ethic, the drive has always been in you.
I'm pretty intense. On stuff. I mean, it's just nature, kind of like my nature.
Yeah. So this intensity has been kind of focused in various points in various ways throughout your life. And now, share how your intensity comes through you.
Well, all those things, kind of, they're synergistic in a way. Mm-hmm. When you grow up in your situation where, you've got kids from another neighborhood wanting to beat the crap out of you all the time, believe me, those interactions are always extremely intense. You don't know if someone's going to pull a knife on you or something. I've had that happen. And, the intensity levels in that situation are far beyond what most people ever have, even in their athletic adventures and their athletic experiences. It's far beyond that, because now it's a life and death situation. And, whereas in athletic competition, the person isn't usually trying to literally kill you. So there is a difference. And so that intensity level is something that I'm maybe unfortunately too familiar with. I wish I didn't have that kind of familiarity, but it is very intense. And so I'm used to that intensity. And, I've been conditioned by experience to be able to cope with that, with intense situations. Whether it's stepping into a ring, to box, or whether it's, competition, in track and field, you're getting your blocks, waiting for a start gun. I mean, you like almost get tweaked out, really jumpy. And you have to have that intensity, I think, to be a really, really good competitor. That does not help a long distance runner, so. Because
you gotta chill out.
You run that first quarter mile in a 10-mile race, or a 10K race at quarter mile speed, you're finishing probably way back.
Yeah.
Minutes behind.
So I know that you are a competitor in track and field.
Yes.
Amongst other things. What else are you competing in? Or what have you competed in throughout your life? And how did you get into that? And what are you still competing in these days today?
Well, I got second place in Golden Gloves boxing in 1982. I decided I wanted to go back into track and field after that.
How did you get into boxing, first of all?
Okay. A friend of mine said, okay, you could stop doing dumb stuff. Clean up your life. Stop being a jerk. You're running around and
a professional jerk in the ring.
Yeah, right. It's just, put it in the ring, see what you can do. Come on, man. Let's clean up our lives. And so, really we grew up in the 70s, and I went and said, wow, this is actually pretty cool, man. It kind of reminds me of being able to fight, but now it's legal. So I took to that, and then when I left that situation, I played sports in high school. I did get booted off the football team, but but I always loved track and field, and so I just all of it, and so I have done things like 10Ks and 5Ks and 8Ks and 1 mile runs and any distance from 50, 100, 200, 400, 800s.
Up to about 10K.
My best 10K time is in the 39s.
Nice.
39 minutes. And my best mile time in my life, I think, is 5:10. And
so what was your distance or event on in the track and field? What was it, and now what is it?
Okay, all right. In high school, I was a 220 back in those days, 220 yards, 440 yards.
Which is about 200 meters.
Yeah. We're talking like 80 inches or 40 inches, depending on either one of those races. And then I was a long jumper and high jumper. And so that's something that I still do now, but I've put in back in those days, you were restricted. You couldn't, do too many events. I could have done more events. I could have done the shot put, because, I was always pretty explosive and being able to get, and get it out pretty far. But
those were yours.
Yeah, but there's bigger people that could do that. They could not do the jumps, and they couldn't do the sprints. Yeah. So, okay, you're going to do jumps and sprints, and they're going to throw because they can't jump or sprint. And so it was like one of those horse trades.
But it sounds like you could have been hung pretty well with like a decathlon kind of thing.
Well, that ultimately was what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And so when I left, the boxing situation, I was, I'm going to make the U.S. Olympic team in 1988. And I was so thrilled watching Jürgen Hengsen and Daley Thompson's battles and various decathlon competitions. And I said like 83, 84, and 85. And just watching them, jack the record up higher and higher and higher in terms of points. And, I paid attention to some of the other decathletes, like Guido Kratschmer and Dr. George Werthner. I can't remember all. I mean, it's been a while now.
I don't know any of them.
Yeah, well, this has been a while, so I don't, I can't remember everyone from that time period. But so I look at these guys and well, you know what? I've got this. I mean, I'm not the fastest guy in the world, but I'm not slow. Mm-hmm. I'm not the biggest guy, but I'm pretty strong. Mm-hmm. And I'm not a super thin guy, but I'm thin enough, so I can jump, I can throw, and I can sprint. And so I thought, well, you know what? I might be able to do this. And so I designed a 4-year program to try to make the 1988 Olympic team. In 1986, I blew up a hamstring, and my father decided to have me watch this movie called Chariots of Fire.
Haven't seen that one.
Beautiful movie.
I've heard of it, I believe.
But it only made me cry because it was about the 1928 Olympics. Oh, no, wait a minute. 1924 Olympics, I think, were in Paris. Mm-hmm. And that was the first or maybe the second Olympiad after World War I. And it was before any of the stuff going on with Germany was, going train wrecking. Mm-hmm. And, in it, I see these people that were real people that they were doing kind of like a biography, pretty close adherence to what was going on. And, and it just hit my heart to see these people, these competitors, their dreams, their hopes. And, I'm sitting here with this blown up hamstring. I just started to cry. I said, well, I want this experience. I just wanted it so badly. And it took me a year to recover from that before I could even jog. I couldn't do any sprints. I mean, I could barely pull my leg in front, for a long time. And surgeries, technology back then was just not where it is now. And I could never get those steps back. Not for lack of trying, no. Mm-hmm. And so I just kind of stayed in generally really good shape. I had a legacy of eating reasonably well compared to most Americans. My parents used to order from the Whole Earth catalog that came out in 1970, a counterculture, if you will, kind of thing where you could go to get organic foods and exotic foods that you couldn't get in a normal American grocery store back in those days. Mm-hmm. And so I was exposed early on to things like organic oatmeal and blanched cashews that were, completely, unsalted and
just pure real food.
Yeah, it was real food. And so we had all these different kinds of seeds and nuts and things like that. Yeah. And so I had this whole thing, started out with Rachel Carson. I got my parents off of using pesticides and just the whole thing. It just kind of like flowed into this thing. I was like, wow, I kind of feel like I have something to be able to do with myself still.
So this was very much the nutritional awareness was very much present when you were training for those 1988 Olympics.
Oh yeah,
or when,
yep. But even nutritional awareness was already there.
It was already there.
Even beforehand, starting in the 1970s.
Back in the back when you were young.
Yes,
and
very much so.
Was that coming from your family, or was that coming from you influencing your family, or was it kind of a little? It was
kind of a combination because they went into the Whole Earth catalog, but that I don't know, I can't know because both of my parents have passed away. Mm-hmm. But when my brother and I, 1 year younger than me, I have two brothers, but the 1 year younger than myself. He and I got on my parents' case because they also used to smoke cigarettes. So they stopped smoking cigarettes. And we stopped, and, I really hammered them about pesticides, including things like DDT. So before DDT was made illegal in 1970, they stopped using pesticides, from what I could tell. Mm-hmm. And so even though my mom had an extreme arachnophobia situation, it was stopped. I didn't see it. I mean, I would always put them outside because I didn't have any fear of spiders or snakes or anything like that at all.
Yeah.
And so then going forward from there, being exposed to that organic, food. I mean, not all organic, obviously, and then just paying attention to things of that sort. I realized that there should be some way of optimizing what I'm eating to what I'm doing.
Yeah, well, you're talking about focusing on organic in like the 1970s, and to my awareness, most food was organic. There wasn't any organic labels up in at that
No,
point in
actually, I
time.
hate to tell you, most food was not organic.
Most food was not organic, but there wasn't that certification, or was
Correct.
there? Yeah.
There was not. You had no certifications back then.
So you just kind of had to trust what people were talking
Right.
about.
Hey,
and
this
how
is
they were
grown
selling.
in.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like I think some of the things like Oregon Tilth and things like that started out in the 1970s, and some of these other third-party certification groups. I mean, back then you didn't have certified personal trainers either. I mean, that
You just
started.
kinda took people's word for what it was, and
Well, you're called a coach.
Yeah.
Hey, coach, what do you want to do? What do you want me to do, coach? Tell me how to do it. Okay, so you're gonna do this. You're gonna do this exercise program. This is what you're gonna do.
Yeah, but it's a good
You
point.
didn't have personal
Now we
trainers.
live in a world of certification for everything, and
Yes.
people are just acquiring all these certifications that define who someone is to some degree. But I like to consider a world where we kind of transcend this certification and need for to put value and labels on what people know and what people can do, rather than just trusting that someone accumulates knowledge and wisdom through life experience and is able to transpart that and share that with as a just kind of a coach relationship like you were talking about. And similarly in the world of food, it's kind of a shame to some degree that we have to rely on labels to tell us what, if we can really trust what's in the food, rather than just trusting that most products is, in our best interest, which is unfortunately just not quite the case in our world today.
No, it's horrible. I mean, those certifications almost get in the way of understanding, because you're certified to accept what they say, whoever the certification agency is, what they say you're supposed to know. And now what you're supposed to know according to them may not have anything to do with how you're going to apply what you can understand, because they want you to know something by rote. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean you understand it. And so you can take someone that's certified to teach
you can pass the test, essentially.
Right. You can take someone who's never thrown a discus before, or shot put, or javelin, or high jumped, and they can get certified to maybe teach those things, or they can be certified to teach, and that could include those things, and yet have no experience. It's like someone taking a correspondence course, online.
Yeah, learning online how to throw a shot put or something.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's like, are you kidding me? And now you got some certification. I'm certified to teach rugby, football, baseball, basketball, and yoga, Pilates, and high jumping, long jumping, triple jumping, pole vaulting. Hey, well, I got a lot of certifications there, Ben. You trust me?
Totally. And the same could be true, or could be said for the world of nutrition and nutritional counseling. And
absolutely.
Just because you got some plaque on the wall that says I did this 12-hour online course doesn't mean that you know that much with regard to what's going on in the deep layers of human physiology and biochemistry. Which brings me to kind of want to shift the conversation a little bit to how you it sounds like you've always been very health focused, nutritional focused,
extremely
throughout
so.
Your athletic training and achievements. But when did the vegan, plant-based, plant-powered message and that way of being get into you? Because I know that's very much something that you express now.
It is. A long time ago, I used to live in a thing called a hippie commune. And that was the first time I ever tried to go vegan. And unfortunately, the only thing out there that I was aware of at the time was Diet for a Small Planet by Frances Moore Lapay or something, or Frances Lapay and Moore. I can't remember her name. Yeah. But that was it.
Book.
Yeah, it was done in written like 72 or something. And
So when, first of all, where and when was this hippie commune?
This was in Austin, Texas, and it would have been 1980.
All right.
Yep.
And
before Austin, Texas had skyscrapers.
So it was, and this commune was pretty much a vegan. Like, did you kind of have to be a vegan to be
No, you didn't have
to
to be vegan, but there were probably 8 or 9 vegans, and my feeling was that they were not the healthiest vegans because they weren't doing exercise, or enough exercise, and so I wasn't completely dismissive of them, but they did not attract me to veganism because of their health, of their appearance.
It's like, I don't want to be like that guy, that scrawny guy who can't.
Exactly. And, and the truth be told, what got me was a guy that was a vegan who was hardy and did go out and do a lot of outdoor stuff. He said, "Come on, man, what did that poor little chicken do to you?" And so I was thinking, this was a living being, and here I've got this creature that I'm somehow responsible for spending money on, or and if we killed it, sacrificed it for what? My indulgence? Mm-hmm. I felt bad, but I still ate it anyway.
So that first kind of hint of veganism and the vegan way of life was coming from an ethical standpoint, it sounded like.
Yes, absolutely. Because again, the vegans I knew were not anything what I would call inspiring or aspirational in any kind of way from an aesthetic perspective, or from a quantifiable athletic achievement kind of thing. There was nothing. It was empty.
Or it sounds like just from an overall health perspective, from your outside awareness at least, like you're looking at these guys, they don't look that healthy. I feel healthier and stronger than them. Why should I be like that?
It's a rationalized sequence of logic.
Yeah.
And
so what was your, being health focused in, pre-1980, what was your diet like?
Well, before that, I was consuming as much meat as I possibly could. And I was eating, stuff that I mean, this is really gross. I hate to admit it, my fellow vegans out there. Sorry, don't condemn me. It's a learning process. You evolve.
Yeah.
But I used to say, take my, these steaks. Someone ordered 2 steaks at the same time. Okay.
Was one a mistake? I'm just kidding.
Well, they're both mistakes. And maybe I deserve a steak in the heart for this. But I would say, okay, take these steaks and just give it a moon tan.
Tell me what a moon tan is.
Yeah, basically you take the steak, you rinse it off, get the bone chips off of it, you throw it on the grill for like 10 or 15 seconds, flip it over, 10, 15 seconds.
Seared raw.
Yeah, and then I would eat it like that. Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. Yeah. I got food poisoning from that.
It
did. Hey, you know what? You're right. It did.
So that way, so you were getting as much meat into your body, but it sounds like other, clean meat or well-sourced meat probably, or
Yeah, I mean it was Texas ranch.
I
cattle.
assume any meat in 1980 is better than the meat today.
I honestly don't.
I don't know what the conventional factory farming was like in 1980, but
well, they didn't have any restrictions back then. There was no regulations, so people could do pretty much almost anything they wanted to.
Yeah,
and I believe that they did. And so it was only those people who would come. Like for instance, Whole Foods started in Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
I actually shopped at the first Whole Foods on the planet.
Yeah.
And it was right there. And, it was just in a little Quonset hut. I mean, it was a dive. I mean, it looked like some just industrial dump. You walked in, fluorescent lights hanging off the ceiling.
Did they sell? Is this where you'd get your meat and?
That was the only place where our cooperative, or commune would buy any meat at all. Was only from Whole Foods. Now, where they sourced it, I can't tell you.
Yeah.
But we used to buy most of our stuff, all of our vegetables, and I hate to admit cheese, dairy stuff, but we would buy that off the back ends of trucks, from farmers, like a farmer's cooperative. They would roll their trucks in, and then my commune, along with probably 15 or 20 others, we would all buy and divide things up. So you would have maybe an 80-pound bag of pinto beans. And so we would say, okay, well, we only need 20 pounds of this. So, and so I'll take 10, 15, 20, 25. Okay, and now you've got the 80 pounds done, gone. So now let's all divide up. So we would take our 20 pounds and put it in. And there were like 30 different kinds of beans that we could order. So we would have all kinds of beans, all, different kinds of rice, different kinds of, corn.
So this is once you were in the commune and had taken the step into a vegan way of living?
I lasted as a vegan for all of 2 weeks.
Okay. So tell me what happened there. What what were those 2 weeks like? And yeah, I'm sure there were a lot of factors and people, but
there were.
Yeah.
And I mean, the reason why I ended up caving after 2 weeks is that my weight was plummeting. I only weighed 162 or something at the time, and it was dropping way down into the 150s. And I mean, I don't feel like I'm an obese, corpulent, roly-poly guy right now, but I weigh almost 190, probably 188 pounds now. So you imagine, taking almost 30 pounds off of that and then knocking some more weight off.
Yeah.
And so that definitely was something that I would have to confess to having some concern about. And, I started doing 10Ks around that time. And, and then I started, just say, well, I feel like I need to eat meat because, I mean, I didn't understand about complementary proteins and, and how to do that, when to do it. Tofu at the time was an exotic rarity. You got some tofu? Wow. Oh my God. I haven't seen this before. I mean, you just didn't see it anywhere. And we made our own yogurt and stuff like that. And I mean, so we're involved in trying to generate as much food as we could. We had a garden, so we would grow stuff there, for the house.
Sounds like an awesome life. How long were you in the commune for?
3 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And so, but only 2 weeks of which were vegan. Sounds like
I confess.
Yeah, it sounds like otherwise, a little like clean eating though.
Compared to most people,
Yeah.
yes, clean eating. I was not eating fast food.
Yeah.
I've never liked fast food. I have eaten it before, but I don't consider it fast or food, nor do I consider it junk or food. It's not fast or junk. I can go to a junkyard and find junk that's useful. There's nothing useful about junk food, okay? And it's certainly not food. Honestly, it's industrial calories. It's a laboratory creation and bears almost no resemblance to anything that I would now call food. None. There's no relation.
So you've never been into that. That's pretty clear, or at least from that point.
Right. No, okay, fine. I'm on a highway. I'm desperate. There's nothing to eat. And it's 10 years ago. Now I bring my own food, so I don't even have to deal with that.
Yeah.
But, I would have to, sure. That would be the only time I would ever eat fast food or industrial calories would be, if I was on the road, absolute desperation, or I might be, considering eating, stopping at some orange grove and picking oranges or pulling corn out of a cornfield,
Hopping the fence and getting into the orchard. Yeah,
yeah, right, exactly. And
that's the real fast food.
Yeah, right, because it's there and it's natural and it's certainly fast, and you better be fast getting out of there too.
So
what are you doing? Get off my lawn!
So fast forward from 1980 to 83, you were in the commune, and then
actually 70 and 80 and 81.
Okay.
And then I was out in 81.
So and then what from there forward? At what point did you get bit by the vegan bug again, or did it kind of follow you? And
I started drifting. Still eating meat. I was looking at supplements, and then I started reading a book by Marjorie Shostak and some other author that was called The Paleo Prescription. And I was looking at how they were able to do some forensic analysis of what diets were like, possibly through coprolites and fossilized poop from humans. I don't know how to put that nicely. And they were trying to determine what people really ate back then, 30, 40, 80, 100,000 years ago. And taking a look at things like bone density studies. And I started realizing, you know what? People were not these great hunters, hunting mammoths and mastodons and just knocking them off like they're, a bowling ball going through, pins in a bowling alley. No, because if you went over that mountain ridge and there were no animals there, then guess what? You became a vegan that day, or you were dead.
Right.
So you figured out that the one thing that human beings could always rely on, except during a drought, would have been plant food, plants, funguses, seeds, nuts, berries, roots.
Yeah, I think that the
tubers,
the hunter-gatherer thing, people obviously focus on the hunter, but I think the hunter was the rarity, of course, and from my belief and philosophy, probably more of a desperation. Like, oh my gosh, I'm hungry. There's a mammoth walking by. That's a lot of calories. Let's go take that sucker down.
I can feed the tribe.
For a month or something.
Right, and especially if in the wintertime, you would have been able to store the meat, freeze it, and I don't know if people were using root cellars back in, 30, 80,000 years ago, but, if they're living up in the north, they probably had some way of storing something. They probably were aware of, well, gee, my roots and tubers are frozen solid here. It's 20 below zero. Well, I guess I can heat them up, get a pot of water boiling in some clay pot or something like that. I'm not saying the clay pot would have been free of lead or anything, but, whatever they did, I don't know. I mean, I have no idea what their cooking techniques were. I don't think anybody does.
Yeah, so you got intrigued by this kind of paleo diet, which but you were looking at the plant side of paleo.
Yes.
A lot of people look at the animal product side of paleo.
That is exactly correct.
So you were looking at the plant side of paleo and thinking, this is what I kind of am resonating with. So you kind of went on that line.
Right, because if the hunt wasn't successful, what's the plan, keto diet followers? What's the plan, paleo diet people? If your meat wasn't over the mountain ridge or in the plain or next to the river, were you a breatharian because you're just so pure in your keto diet and so pure in your paleo diet and you're breatharian?
Well, they were.
Let me know how that worked. I don't know.
I was just envisioning, some paleo person, some cave person walking down the, river stream and pricking his finger to get a blood sample and testing his blood sugar and having this, berry bush on the side of the river and thinking, oh no, I can't eat those now. I got to stay in ketosis.
Right. Oh my God. You're going to laugh. But I was on a hiking trail right below the Rudai Dam there. There's a trail that goes, if you drop down and go to the right, there's a couple trails back there. I actually made a joke and I said, as I went up, I see this beautiful field of grasses, and and of course the seeds of grasses are edible, and being a grain. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to make a little joke here. So I took out my phone camera recorder. I said, "Oh my gosh, my fellow cavemen, we're looking at a field of wheat and grasses, but guess what?
Can't eat them.
We're not allowed to eat this, so we better starve." And so I made a joke out of it because it's so idiotic and almost stupid. Human beings are pretty much opportunistic when it comes to
100%.
Yeah, I mean it's just
every
the most
animal,
ridiculous thing. That no, I'm going to stub my nose at a field of wheat. Sorry, Ben, we got to starve.
Yeah,
we're on a keto paleo diet. We're not allowed to do that stuff. Our progeny 20,000, 80,000 years later, they're not going to appreciate us having eaten this wheat here.
Yeah, there are some very
wheat.
Interesting, very dogmatic rules, for lack of a better word, that I don't know why they exist. I'm sure someone could share with me why they exist.
It's whimsical nonsense.
Yeah,
really, it really is.
So you didn't. So you were intrigued by the paleo thing, but didn't bite onto all these nuanced, really ridiculous rules around what to eat and what not to eat.
No,
you focused
not
on
at all.
the natural calories, the natural foods from the earth, and so was that the vegan point?
That was where I switched over, and that was in 80, I think in 88. The first, okay, so you had reading of that book, paleo prescription back in like 87, 88 or something. And then right after that, at the same time, I was part of a food cooperative in Silver Spring in Maryland, and and so I started eating tofu blocks. They made their own tofu. You had to use tongs to get tofu back, and wow, we can get some tofu now. It's good stuff.
Yeah, the exotic stuff.
Yeah, and I would have a fish probably once every 10 days on average. And I realized that there was far more nutrition in plants than in animal foods.
Did you realize that intellectually reading something, or did you realize that kind of experientially in your body?
I think it was a combination of the two things. It was kind of like a cross-pollinating positive feedback loop. I feel better doing this. I feel stronger doing this. I feel faster doing this. I have greater stamina doing this. I can recover from my workouts better by doing this.
So you would experience, when you were eating the fish once every 10 days, give or take, you'd feel better in the 9 days without fish than the 1 day with fish?
It was almost like a little mini roller coaster, too subtle, for a while there.
Yeah.
The other thing was that when I started reading about the intelligence of animals, and I used to think of like pigs as just being just a damn pig, doesn't have any brains, just a stupid domestic farm animal, who cares? Bacon, and even though I don't want to eat bacon. I don't want to eat pigs anymore because they're too smart. That means they're aware. I wouldn't eat a dog, and if they're 10 times as smart as a dog, and I wouldn't eat a dog because it has feelings. They can look in the eye and knows who you are, knows its name, has, it's a sentient being. It has some conscious awareness, and I thought that, my God, I just don't want to do this. I don't want to eat pigs. I do not want to do this. And for the same reason, I wouldn't eat a chimpanzee or a dolphin, because they're intelligent beings. And I just felt like there was something morally and ethically wrong with doing that.
Yeah, so for a while you were putting these animals in the okay to eat, like the fish is the okay to eat.
Yes.
But everything else I feel a connection with, so I'm going to continue eating the fish because it's okay. You just had this rule.
It just recognizes food, friend, and foe.
Yeah.
And you're not, the fish, that was my feeling. It knows what its food is and know what can eat it.
So it was a combination of the feeling of stamina, strength, like the less meat animal products you ate, the better you felt physically. And also there was this ethical piece that was weaving in, bubbling up.
Yes, that definitely was a very big deal to me.
And was there a tipping point at which time it was like, no more fish? Now,
unfortunately, I had a marriage that ended at that time, shortly after that in around 2000. And I just threw everything up in there. I just said, I don't give a crap anymore. And, I definitely let I continued exercising, but I started eating, meat again. And my weight went up to, actually it was like 232 pounds at one time.
This was around 2000? A little after?
Yeah, I would say in probably like 2001 to up to about 2005 or 6. Then I had my weight down to about 220. And then 6 years ago, I had been talking to my wife about having 2 days where we're vegan, 2 days where we're vegetarian, and the other 3 days we'll just eat. If we have to have meat, then we'll do it. And quote, have to, unquote, because there's no necessity.
Yeah.
And so at that point in time, I, didn't really resonate, within our household, but I knew how to do it. I knew how to be vegan. By that time I was like, wow, I've got tofu, got all these other things now. And so then my wife started having some, a couple health issues that were really pretty kind of scary.
You said you got a divorce around 2000, so this is...
Yeah, well, technically I got divorced and I got remarried, and then I married definitely this. Yeah, it's another can of worms.
Okay.
And
but we're talking about the second marriage.
No, we're talking about third marriage.
Third marriage. Now.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Three strikes and I'm whiffing out, bro.
You're good. Just want to stay.
Only kidding, honey. We're good.
Just swept a couple under the rug. I just didn't realize.
I released them back in the general population. I recycled my spouses.
So
the third wife,
2000 to 2005 or 6, you said things were you kind of let.
Yeah, go. I just didn't give a crap. I mean, I just literally did not give a crap.
And then what's made you start giving a crap again?
Well, because the woman I'm married to now is someone who is an empathetic person and is an empath. She definitely has very, very, very strong feelings.
So she's taught you some things, or showed you some things around connecting with yourself.
Yes,
and animals and
yes, very much so. And seeing her love for the first dog we had in the house, and then getting more dogs and so forth, and the love that they showed, gave me a greater appreciation for them existing on their own merits without me being mean to them or anything like that. And I feel like that all domestic animals are owed by humanity service to them for having them even be alive. Mm-hmm. And I think that maybe most domestic animals, I mean, that's why I believe in spaying and neutering. We shouldn't have more of them, and their souls should not be brought up into this world to be treated with cruelty and merciless deception, as we trick the pigs and the cattle and the sheep to go into the slaughterhouses. That just really bothers me. It's duplicitous, it's lying, it's betraying, and dishonest in my spirit, heart, and soul to do that kind of thing. I do not ever want to be in that situation where I do that again. I don't want to, and so that makes me very ethical and very spiritually ethical. And of course, then I have concerns about the environment and of course my exercise and well-being. Mm-hmm. And so when my wife was concerned about her health issues, I saying, take a look at this. And then she starts seeing these films with animals and slaughterhouses and chickens and cows and pigs being tortured. And she started reading about their intelligence and their ability to understand things. And then realizing that things like calling somebody a bird brain is probably an insult to the bird. And, your parrots and corvids, the crow family, magpies, crows, blue jays, and stuff like that, ravens, are all extremely intelligent beings. And they're able to solve problems. They're able to use tools to solve those problems. And they're able to sequence, I have to do A, B, C, and D to get a reward, like freedom or food or a drink or something. They're able to solve problems that are fairly complicated. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to do this. I mean, how dumb is that chicken really? Just because we don't understand how birds' brains work doesn't mean that their brains don't work. It's just we don't understand how that works.
Right. It's just kind of that ignorance of humanity.
Well, yes, and it's arrogance.
Ignorance and arrogance and just...
And condescension. You're just a this.
This delusion that we are God. Like we are the supreme being on Earth. Even though we've only existed on Earth for a fraction of the lifespan of Earth itself, and we are able to control and dictate the outcomes of all other life on the planet.
Absolutely.
It's like, come on.
We're doing a pretty good job at taking care of the biosphere and, maybe trashing it for... Well, I don't know how that, spiritual thing in the whole universe.
Well, we have a great power. We do have this great power of conscious awareness, and we've got our opposable thumbs and our brains and our, frontal lobes. But we have definitely been using these tools, these resources that we have in destructive ways. And I think that the tide is turning just slightly.
I hope you are correct.
The tipping point is going where there's just a critical mass of awareness of what we're doing and how we're doing it, And with that awareness, we know how to do it how to live, how to be in the world in a more harmonious way that allows for regeneration of life and harmonious existence of all creatures. And
I'm going to say it. I think that there is a big divide in the world right now in humanity, and this new rise of dictators and authoritarians and people that are would-be kings and things of that sort around the world. This reactionary populism, where these people just hailed to their little Führers and their heroes or whatever they see them as, and the quote strong men unquote that always need protection, and those folks, I don't think I think they're worse than they were.
Well, I think this is my perspective on the matter. I think we just got to wait for them to die. I think that.
Well, we all have an expiration date.
We all have an
where it is,
date,
but
and
still.
I think that the more kind of old, crusty way of operating in the world, those kind of people who just kind of like the cogs in the wheel, like just the things that mess things up, for lack of a better word. I feel like they're expiring, and there's new awareness, new consciousness, new souls that come into the world with
I agree with that.
Offsetting this.
I do agree with that. However, I am saying that what's happening is that you're getting this divide because the people that follow individuals like Orban and Duterte and these dictators around the world that are coming up, the goofball in Brazil, we got one here in the White House in this country, and the Nigel Farage and Theresa May situation with Brexit in Great Britain, where these people are thinking, well, I'm going to hail to my leader. My leader knows what to do. They tell me what to think. They define reality for me. This leader, lead me. Leader, tell me what to do. I do your bidding for you. I cheer for you daily. And you could be a member of ISIS. You could be a member of Al Qaeda. You could be a member of one of these paramilitary, vigilante killed drug dealers in the Philippines or something. Well, I think he was dealing drugs. Let's go shoot him. That kind of stuff is definitely being isolated by this rise of this reactionary populism. Totally. And it is a horrible, horrible situation, because these people, if they're not able to give any kind of respect or consideration for another human being, I think it's a little bit beyond them to consider a domestic animal as worthy of saving.
Yeah, it's a really good.
They don't care.
It's a really good point. When we're having issues, expressing love and compassion for our fellow humans, then it's kind of a far stretch to consider expressing that love and compassion for all beings. That being said, it's really interesting to me how a lot of people love their dogs, love their cats, love the wild animals so much, and yet perpetuate this sort of mass violence against those creatures or other creatures on this planet. There's a lot of people living out of alignment with their core values and their actions. So
it's weird. I'm just literally driving behind somebody who was driving a Prius, and they're just going to drive super slow because there's this I don't want to have a big carbon footprint. Then they go to the restaurant and order a steak with fries, and then they order, maybe the next day they're ordering some sushi. The next day they're getting a, chicken cordon bleu or something, and it's like there's a disconnect between their philosophical stance and their actions, and maybe it's unwitting, maybe it is unconscious, or I don't know.
It's less than fully conscious
or it's rationalized,
or whatever the case is. There's a lot of that, but I'd like to shift the topic towards the end here, to the topic that I was really hoping to spend more time on,
okay.
As best we can. But the vegan nutrition, vegan lifestyle, with the physical athletic performance, because I know a lot of people, there's more and more strong vegan athletes out there. There's more and more awareness of those people who have probably always been there, but Tom Brady and like all the professional athletes that are thriving on their vegan diets, and you being one of them. I'd like to just focus a little bit on maybe some, I think we've kind of covered, or probably people have an awareness of all the misconceptions that could be held when thinking of a vegan diet. But I'd like to maybe talk about some of the things that you personally focus on to ensure your optimal nutrition on a plant-based diet so that you can compete and thrive in this world as you're doing. And additionally, on that note, like I started the conversation with, you're 61 years old and you're seem like you're probably in close to the best shape of your life, maybe not, depending on who's got the stopwatch or whatever, but
I've lost a couple steps, but
you're in pretty good shape. So I'd like to talk about maintaining that fitness and maintaining that health from a nutritional standpoint. What are some things that you focus on, and some things that you've learned over the course of your vegan nutrition life to implement, for that would maybe support people who are athletes out there or just worried about deteriorating in their lives?
Well, we all deteriorate at some point in time.
Yeah.
But the things that I focus on, I in the mornings I try to have my higher caloric foods, and because I've noticed that when I'm my workouts throughout the day, when I'm going through an entire day, I notice that my caloric expenditure is between, say, maybe about 4,800 to almost 7,000 calories. Oh, wow. in a typical workout day. When I'm not working out, then it's probably in the 25. Actually, it's never that low, but it's about 3,000 to 4,000 calories.
So you've got a high metabolism, high metabolic rate. You're
well, it's because I'm doing stuff.
You're active.
Constantly moving around.
Yeah.
And
if you were to sit on the couch all day for just one day, would you say probably?
Probably. I would have to guess probably around like 2,000, 2,200 maybe. Yeah. If I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
I mean, I just literally sat there, okay, I'll take my peeled grape now. I had to do nothing other than put something in food in my mouth. It'd probably be, 2,000, 2,200 calories.
But on an average day, 5,000 to 7,000 calories that you're burning.
Yeah, I would say that's pretty, that's somewhere in that range, depending on what I did.
All right. So it sounds like from that awareness, knowing that, you've got to refuel yourself.
Yes. So what I do in the morning is I usually put in, I try to use different kinds of seeds. We have tons of different kinds of seeds and nuts in our house. They have a large amount of calories. They have, and with the exception, non-legume types of, seeds and nuts. Mm-hmm. So that would exclude peanuts. Mm-hmm. So I use those as a source of quote good fats. Yes,
calories. But people talk about
I need the calories,
my omega-3s and my protein. But But I think it's important for people to know, and I think you're speaking to it now, that when you eat nuts, you're eating fiber, you're eating micronutrients and minerals, you're eating vitamins, you're eating good fats, and you're eating protein.
And the fats in that situation, again, I'm not a doctor, okay, but I think that under those circumstances, if you have someone who is someone who burns up, maybe even more calories than me, if they're on a per pound basis, they're vegan. I think it's perfectly okay for someone to consume seeds and nuts that are very, very oily. I mean, otherwise they run out of calories. I mean, you may run out of calories anyway, and that's why these people are, these marathoners from Ethiopia. I mean, I don't think they're just knocking down, 3-pound steaks every night. they're eating teff and other kinds of grains.
Yeah.
And then they burn that off, and so there's probably very little, waste, in terms of calorically speaking, that goes through their system, and it's not being deposited as fat because it's being metabolized.
Yeah.
And I think that matters a lot. Now, the reason why people get into trouble, I think, in this country when they're eating seeds and nuts and oils and olive oil, avocado oil, coconut oil, is because they're not doing anything. And
usually those kind of foods are on top of meat, dairy, and eggs. It's like,
right.
Get my good fats in. Get my coconut oil, or I don't even know why people say coconut oil is a good fat. That's another conversation. But get my MCT oil. Get all these things on top of my bad high fat diet because I need the good fats.
Right. See, that's no good. So, but I'll say this, and this is something that Dr. Feinsteiner and I had a discussion literally about coconut oil. I said, well, I don't see that there's anything wrong with consuming coconut oil, and so I pointed out, I said, when you think about the South Pacific Islanders, I mean, they eat a lot of coconuts. They cook with coconut oil, or eating coconuts, or eating coconut meat. They're drinking coconut milk, and life may be around the coconut, and they seem to be okay. And and he said, well, yeah, that's maybe because they're dragging nets out into the ocean, and they're eating fish,
it's in the context of their life and their nutrition,
right? And so they may be going through 5, 6, 7,000, 8,000, maybe even 9,000 calories. Those guys are big. Yeah. They might be going through 10,000 calories in a day. And you went back a couple hundred years, they probably were. And so guess what? That coconut oil now is no longer probably a problem. It's like, well, gee, can you get more because we're getting thin here?
I think that, I don't know. I'm not an expert on that population or anything like that, but I would assume that they're eating mostly the whole food coconut.
Yes, they're not drinking coconut oil.
They're probably not refining the oil, and maybe they cook with it a little bit, but I think a lot of people are, putting in their smoothies and their coffee, just it's endless. So
right, but again, if you had, okay, well, you know what, I got a 25-mile run today, Ben. All right, you know what, you probably need a heck of a lot of calories, and the caloric density required to make it through that, it just won't fit in your stomach if you're just eating only carbos. You will hit a wall and you're done. You won't be able to finish.
That being said, it's important to know, and I'm sure you're aware of this, how carbohydrates are the preferred fuel source of the body. Those are that's the energy food.
No question about it.
That's the energy food. But
that's where your muscular glycogen comes from.
Yeah.
And so anytime you see somebody with large muscles, unless they're a bodybuilder where you may have a lot of scar tissue that composes that look, but a performance athlete that is really strong and powerful, and that means they have the capacity to have stored a great deal of muscular glycogen.
That's carbohydrates. This is carbohydrates. Yes. That's not fat.
That's right. Animal carbohydrates in your muscles. That literally is a fact.
Animal carbohydrates. What do you mean?
Glycogen.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's
the animal source of carbohydrate is glycogen, which is the linkages of glucose molecules. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that's why vegan carbohydrates are such a great source to replenish that. So if you're going out and you're
all carbohydrates are vegan.
Yes. Well, that's true. Actually, they are. You're right. You're right. They are.
In animal foods there are zero carbohydrates, zero fiber, and in a raw steak, maybe when you were searing your steak, maybe you had some glycogen.
I'm sure I did.
But
what a disgusting! I can't believe I just eat that stuff.
But yeah, I think it's important to know that the carbohydrates, which people are generally fearing in our culture, in our society today, because of all the diet myths and diet trends.
Oh, Atkins diet and the South Beach diet. Yeah. I mean, all these these things are so idiotic. And then the worst thing is when you've had someone out of the medical profession say, you need to lose 10 pounds. 10 pounds of what? 10 pounds. Okay, you go to a scale and you lose 10 pounds. Now, what did that do for you?
Yeah.
Okay, so now your weight's down, but what did it do for your cardiovascular system? What did it do for your arteries? Yeah. Did you clear out any plaques? Did you dissolve any plaques while you did this? Did you did you metabolize any of the visceral fat that you have, around your heart and your organs? What did you actually lose?
Well, the first 10 pounds are probably going to be water weight for the majority of people.
Well, that's
That's
even worse,
Yeah.
because now you're dehydrated on top of that. But
so, I mean, that's a really good point. Lose 10 pounds. 10 pounds of what? That's
that's where people make a mistake at looking at the scale as a be all and end all to determine things like body mass index, which to me is a nonsensical mal relationship between a cube function and a square function.
Totally.
It's absolutely idiotic.
Totally.
And so I don't use BMI.
Yeah. So
not at all.
Back to you.
Bad mathematics.
Back to you and your kind of nutritional approach, your nutritional plan to keep fit for your body and your caloric needs. You're eating a lot of nuts and seeds.
Yes, I use a lot of seeds and nuts and a wide variety, anything from hazelnuts, pecans,
what do you
walnuts.
do with these? You're just
sometimes I chew them, sometimes put them in smoothies. I mean, if I don't have any time, I just got to go.
Yeah.
And so I put them in, drink it, go, roll out.
Mm-hmm. What else is going in your smoothie?
I usually use some sort of balancing protein, so I'll put some soy milk in there to as a complementary protein to the seeds and nuts, which are non-legumes. Mm-hmm. And I'll put fruits in, or starch, heavy or denser starch rich kinds of fruits like a banana or something like that, and that'll go in there. Mm-hmm. Then just before my workout, I like to have a blend of various types of leaves. And so I'll have a mixture of like salad greens. I'll have things out of the lettuce family. Then I'll have stuff out of the
just a big bag of greens and just shoving them in your mouth kind of thing.
Yeah, but I'll put those into a blender.
Oh, also in a blender.
Yep,
okay.
Because I frequently don't have any time. But yes, I love eating salads with all. Oh my God, I love salads.
Yeah.
And but if I'm in a rush, I'm just going to a blender. I got to go. Mm-hmm. And then I'll do a workout, and I'll have like I said, a mixture of the brassica family, which is your kale or cruciferous vegetables, your kale, broccoli, rutabaga, turnip. I'm bringing out the weird ones, kohlrabi.
Yeah, all these ones.
And watercress.
Brussels sprouts, but those aren't really greens. But yeah, all that.
It's a small heading cabbage.
Yeah.
And kale's a non-heading cabbage.
Right.
But that whole cabbage family is possibly the most nutritious family of plants, and furthermore, that whole family of plants is completely edible from root to flower, stem, leaves, and everything in between, and at all stages. So the seeds are edible,
totally.
Everything's edible, the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean,
and the same thing with the beet and spinach and chard family. The whole plant is completely edible.
Yeah, from my awareness, most plants are mostly edible.
Yes,
I mean
there are exceptions. You have to watch out for your nightshades for sure.
The leaves and flowers of nightshades. Yeah.
Yes. Oh my. Well, you just better know your nightshades extremely well, because you'd be in a heap of trouble.
Totally.
Really quickly.
Yeah, but by and large, most plants are for us, and I think one of my biggest pet peeves in the kitchen is like skinning carrots and potatoes.
Oh, I never do that.
It's like, but the nutrients, but the good dirt and the good microbes that are on those food, the outside of those foods.
I wash them, but I don't rinse, but I don't grind them clean.
No scrubbing, no peeling, just
with the exception of potatoes. That's the only thing I do scrub.
If they're really dirty. It depends on who's in the grocery market before me picking those up, But chances are.
What you're addressing literally right now is the fact that vegans, in the past would have gotten their B12 from dirt. Yeah. Bacteria that lives in dirt, soil. That's full of
bacteria.
And that's where your B12 comes from. So people, where's the gorilla getting its B12? Well, it's not washing its plants. They're not triple washed.
Yeah,
they didn't give it a bathing.
Water. Yeah,
and so they're getting their B12, And it's the same is true with every herbivore on Earth. They're getting soil bacteria from eating the plants that have grown out of the soil, and the only washing they ever get is from rain. Mm-hmm. Okay, mm-hmm. And maybe a flood, but even that would distribute soil bacteria on them.
So I know you do a lot of. Well, actually, I don't know this. I think you told me that you're like a fitness coach.
Yes, I do. I do personal training.
Personal training, yeah. And does that encompass nutrition as well? I imagine
for some people, I do try to. I tell them you should be doing X, Y, and Z. Now, but I also tell them that this is not a gulag. I cannot hold you in confinement and feed you a paper plate through a little slot in the, like an Edgar Allan Poe story. We're going to slide you a little paper plate of food, and this is what you get here. Or treating like Oliver. You want more? More? I'm going to give you more. And so I can't control people completely.
No one can.
That's the problem.
Yeah, no one can.
And then these people go out and they start just eating all kinds of garbage and eat a 6,000 calorie meal and they've basically only worked out or exercised to the level of maybe 12, maybe 1,000. Really, it's hard for me to get to 1,000 in an hour. I can do it, but
yeah, 1,000 an hour is working your ass off.
Yeah, I can do it, and that's pretty normal.
Yeah.
But most people are not going to be able to have that exercise capacity.
Yeah.
So if they get to like 600-700 calories in an hour, I'm really happy at that point in time. And I'm seeing what they can do and judging by how they're moving and compared to what I do, like, yeah, this is probably around somewhere in that range. Mm-hmm. And I have no control over what they're going to eat. Because again, it's not prison food.
Yeah, neither.
You're not in a gulag.
We're all responsible for our own nutritional intake,
right.
And our, when it comes down to it, and everything in our life, as well as our fitness and how active and how many calories we're burning. But I'm curious, from your perspective, knowing that you don't force feed any of your clients.
I would love to. I could solve so many problems,
right?
Just straight away.
Yeah, let me do it. Open your mouth. Yeah.
Oh God, I could really. Oh my God, if you give me a magic button, I could solve a lot of the world's health problems. And just give me a year. Just give me a year.
I know, right? Well, knowing that we're not at that point yet, I'm curious what you see as kind of the main shortcoming or downfall from people who are plant-based. Assuming that you're working with a client who's vegan, who's plant-based. Who's into fitness and into their physical activity, increasing their physical activity level. What do you see as typically kind of an area of struggle nutritionally for these people, or can you tweeze it out?
Well, I think that for some people that are in that doing that right now, I think that there is perhaps a lack of physical confidence in it, just how far and how hard they can push it.
Well, yeah.
And so as a result, that then short circuits their ability to get really great nutrition, because now they can still be overeating, or they can be eating chips and Coca-Cola and French fries and all kinds of manufactured stuff. And you can have
calling it again the industrial calories.
Yeah, you can still be eating vegan industrial calories
for sure,
and that's not going to serve you well. I don't care who you are. I understand if you do that on as an occasional indulgence, I'm not going to give you a hard time over that. But if you live your life around it, on the other hand, and your exercise is not enough to deal with those indulgences, now you're in trouble. Mm-hmm. You're not as bad as a meat eater by any stretch of the imagination, because you're not getting all the weird hormones. You're not getting probably a lot of the pesticides that they're getting, environmental estrogens that people, have been putting into the media, over the last 5-6 years, 7 maybe 10 years. You're not getting a whole lot of stuff that the meat eaters are getting. Plus, you hopefully are eating more. Or more of a nutrient dense type of food, where you have more, it's more anti-inflammatory, it's more greater density of antioxidants on a per calorie basis. You're getting fewer saturated, fats, and animal fats also have a tendency to carry, things like quote like heavy metals and cadmium, mercury, and lead and stuff like that. That
all the things bioaccumulate. Yeah.
Yeah, and that stuff is really horrifying. But you don't really have a lot of that in plants. So you're eating, low on a pyramid. And it's just like when you go out and you eat something like a tilefish, for heaven's sakes.
I'm not familiar with what that fish is.
Well, the reason I bring that up is that's one of the fish that has one of the highest levels of mercury.
It's like at the top of the fish food chain in there.
Yeah. And if somehow it must be eating stuff that just really is awful.
Yeah, you don't want to be, what was it, the tile?
Tilefish.
Do not be a tilefish, because I think a lot of humans are, putting themselves at the top of the food chain, just accumulating all that junk.
They are, and something else, which as a doctor I'm sure you're probably familiar with, is that sometimes when these people start losing that weight and that fat starts, being metabolized, it starts releasing some of those toxins. They can literally, cause themselves to become sick
for sure
from the bioaccumulated, chemicals and elements that they've put into their body over a period of years.
For sure, a lot of people have the don't feel well on a clean diet because they're releasing all of these negative things into their circulation.
Absolutely.
And then they think, oh, this diet isn't working for me. I got to retoxify myself. And I think a lot of people are in that kind of cycle of just
Ben, I got to take care of my heroin habit today. I was feeling, pretty bad because I missed my shot, but dadgummit, I need it now. I'm going to feel great.
But
let me recommend it to you.
But it's that culturally accepted heroin habit. It's that heroin habit that 99% of the population has.
It is a culturally accepted addiction.
Yep.
And that's one of the things that I think that is also very difficult for people who are, still eating meat. They don't understand the amounts of toxic materials that are going into the body that the fat masks, and that's very unfortunate.
Yeah.
And so instead of them doing, like, for instance, what I'm doing, I'm pretty much eating. My wife and I, we eat a lot of organic stuff, and it's almost not completely.
Yeah, it's becoming more and more important.
Yeah, so you're eating your leaves just before a workout. Then I like to have, a higher density in terms of protein foods with some carbohydrates to replenish glycogen stores. And so I recover from my workout by doing that. And then, having, large amounts of water, and then maybe having a very small amount of protein dense stuff, maybe, 60 minutes, maybe 90 minutes before going to bed. Mm-hmm. And then I feel like I recover very well from that. Mm-hmm. And plus, because of, the consumption of mostly whole foods, there's all these different kinds of chemicals in plants that are not understood or not. And then when pharmacies try to then separate things, well, look, we can separate resveratrol from grape. Okay, so we'll put a resveratrol supplement out there. And we don't know what the rest of the grape is doing. Oh, yeah. But hey,
that's a whole nother can of worms, the isolated nutrients.
Yes. Yeah. And, but why ask questions? You're getting your resveratrol, aren't you? Okay, there you go. Sure. That's good.
I love raisins.
You're all good.
Yeah. Well, gosh, this has been a really rich conversation. We've navigated a lot. I'm curious if you've got, any kind of last words of wisdom or advice geared towards somebody who maybe is just seeking a little inspiration with regard to their fitness goals, with regard to their athletic goals, given the fact that you're a high, elite athlete yourself, with that, internal motivation has never been anything that you've been too detached from yourself. It's always been present inside of yourself. So I'm curious if you have any perspective or can shed any light on connecting with that, because I think that once we individuals are able to connect with that flow of inspiration and motivation, we can do anything with regard to our fitness and our health and nutritional lifestyle changes.
Yes, I would say that I think the most important thing for human beings is, okay, clearly for many reasons you should go on a vegan diet. You really should. Okay, now connecting that to exercise. Okay, I'm not going to go into the environmental reasons, carbon footprint, and all that, but that's there too. But so once you've gone into having a vegan diet, unless you don't care about anything else but your health. Okay, this is all for exercise, all about you. Okay, I'm okay with that for right now. The other things should be addressed, but we can do that another time. Mm-hmm. But you should jack up the intensity levels of your exercise in intermittent efforts at various time frames and ranges and different levels of recovery between those efforts. But most of the time there is a shortage of intensity in terms of effort that I think a lot of people are like just scared to just go all the way in. And again, addressing some bone density studies, you go back to 110,000 years ago, and in the areas of the insertions and origins of muscles across articulations, and that's where your muscle attaches from one bone to another, and you move your arms or your legs or something. The bone density 110,000 years ago in human beings was roughly equivalent to that of orangutans, gorillas, chimpanzees, and bonobos, our closest primate relatives. And that shows that somehow across those articulations, human beings must have been phenomenally strong compared to the way humans are today. And that's due to the necessity of survival and needing and surviving extremely intense situations. Like going back to the village and saying, "Wow, I only had a stick and I beat the saber-toothed tiger off of me." Okay, but here I am, and the failure to do that meant that you were cat food. So human beings are way more resilient, way more versatile than we give ourselves credit for. There's been a serious softening in attitude regarding the potential of our human genetics. It doesn't matter where in the world you're from. It really doesn't. We are short selling ourselves, okay, in terms of our abilities to be able to perform and do nearly miraculous things. And I think that it's that lack of intensity that is the biggest thing. You can also shorten the amount of time that you work out if you do introduce extremely intense exercises. You do want to do things, like say your standard power lifts. But in addition to doing power lifts, you need to actually do something that has you moving, not just standing there picking up a barbell or dumbbells. You need to go out and run. You need to do sprinting. You need to push yourself to run close to as fast as you can. Not necessarily as fast as you can, because there's some risk in doing that. You can get hurt. But you need to push yourself. You need to do things like jumps and various kinds of jumping and hiking exercises. That increases bone density in your legs and in your body. You need to pick things up. Those are true Paleolithic exercises. So if you're out there hiking, you're doing a Paleolithic exercise. Congratulations to you. And if you're picking things up, that would be similar, and walking with them, that would be similar to someone, say, 20,000 years ago trying to make their living quarters perhaps safe from saber-toothed cats and cave bears and dire wolves and things like that that could put us on the menu pretty easily. So we need to make things much more intense. Have confidence that your genetic heritage is something that can really be explored and it can be pushed to incredible levels. And I hope that I can inspire people, especially vegans, to have that confidence. Know you can go for it and really do it. You don't have to compete against me, but you can always be a better you by pushing yourself and feeling good. Wow, I feel great for my workout. When you have that, then you're probably doing really good things for yourself. And you pay attention to your nutrition, pay attention to the timing of your calories, paying attention to your sleep, something we didn't discuss. And then so your timing of your calories, intensity of exercise, rest, recovery, sleep, and you're pretty much on the path towards genetic excellence. I know it's a long summation, but I didn't know how to make it any shorter.
Love it. I'm feeling like I want to get outside and do some sprints myself. And, I trust that a lot of people are feeling uplifted and energized and inspired by listening to you talk. So thanks for sharing your journey, your story, and inspiring me to get out there and push myself a little bit more, because I must say that I'm maybe in that category of people who, come up against the edge and then I shy back. So thanks for
push it and something, and try things that are different too. You want to have a quiver full of exercise tools, if you will, and skills. So I think it's this is something else for long term, is that you should have seasonal sports that you can do. So if you ski, cross country ski, snowshoe in the wintertime, ice skating in the wintertime, all those things are great things to do. And then as spring comes along, like maybe you want to get on your bike. Maybe you want to,
you're talking to me, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. That's right. I'm right on you, Ben. And then, and then you want to maybe go into sprints. Maybe you want to do something goofy, like just go someplace and swing a bat or a tennis racket and learn how to turn, twist.
Where was I the other day when I was watching people like chop wood? And I was like, oh, that looks like it feels so good, swinging that big axe and just coming down hard. And that's a good workout.
It is. And again, that's a turning, twisting thing. So what happens is, and this is something we're really digressing here a little bit, but when I go into the gym, a lot of exercises are confined to what's called the sagittal plane. Yeah. That's front and back, okay, up and down, bench press, squat, deadlift, okay, overhead military presses. Those are all sagittal plane stuff. Rowing in an ergometer, very sagittal. Riding a bicycle is very sagittal. Although you do have some turning, you have to, balance yourself through your core into the handlebars.
Yeah, there's not much, rotation.
Very little rotation.
So you like to get the rotational stuff in as well as the sagittal.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We will look at what our nearest ancestors can do. I'm not saying we need to swing from tree to tree to get to the supermarket, but let's just put it this way. They're able to turn and twist pretty well.
Yeah.
Our spinal columns are designed to be able to do that.
Totally.
And, it doesn't mean you have to do massive amounts of stuff, but this whole idea that baby boomers like myself square up to every single thing. We don't live in a square where you reach out for a car door and you might have blow up a disc because you haven't been turning enough when you're a kid.
Yeah.
You can prevent it.
Keep that flying spine fluid, yeah.
Absolutely. My God.
Well, could go on, and I trust we will another time, but until
Ben,
then,
thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this. Dude.
All right.
You got some sprints in front of you.
Yeah. Not this moment, but
I'm going to send you a text.
All right. We'll hit it.
Burn those feet up when you're thinking, oh, man, come in. Got me doing these sprints. I can't believe, what am I doing here?
You'd be haunting me. All right. Well, until next time, thanks for joining. Peace and love.
Absolutely. I'm with you, bro. Thank you for having me.